Tonight, kids in danger.
How long are we going to let this continue?
Social media giants face up to online threats to children. Plus, the Democrats' deadline for the multi-trillion-dollar Biden agenda.
I always thought government should be my partner, not my provider.
Up against moderate Democrats in the Senate, amid a neck-and-neck race for the Virginia governor's seat. Plus, Moderna joins Pfizer in releasing new data on the COVID-19 vaccine for children between 5 and 11 years old. All this and more on Faith Nation. Welcome to Faith Nation. I am Tara Mergener. Well, tonight, should big tech and the World Wide Web be regulated to protect children? That is the big question for lawmakers as they investigate social media giants and whether key safeguards exist. CBN's Brody spoke with those calling out big tech, demanding the wellness of children to be put over financial interest. Brody?
Tara, this is the three players. They see great growth in young users. They're also out to prove they've implemented safeguards. This after recent headlines highlighted how Facebook business practices could negatively impact children. Now, for the first time, lawmakers are working to put privacy regulations on big tech.
Kids as young as 9 have died doing viral challenges on TikTok. And we've seen teen girls lured into inappropriate sexual relationships with predators on Snapchat.
Protecting children from the ills of the internet took priority for the Senate Commerce Subcommittee. The main takeaway?
You cannot trust big tech with your kids.
The names and faces behind TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat were questioned about their safeguards for children under 13. Senators wanting specifics on areas such as data collection, algorithms putting ads and sexual content in front of children, plus content ranging from glorifying eating disorders to self-harm to violence.
First of all, where kids play, predators prey.
Donna Rice Hughes with Enough is Enough wants to stop Instagram from starting its kids platform and needs help to do it by getting signatures supporting internet regulation. For example, did you know when it comes to those 18 and under that 43% speak to strangers regularly online at least once a week? Over 40% have either sent or received a sext message, and perhaps most shocking, kids under 10 represent 22% of that group's online porn consumption.
Some of these companies have taken some steps, but it's not enough.
Tuesday, lawmakers shared what they found after creating fake accounts across all platforms, imitating teens and adolescents.
An invite to play an online sexualized video game, tips on, quote, why you shouldn't go to bars alone, and articles about porn stars.
As legislators seek to protect kids, TikTok's relations with communist China raise concern for our national security.
Okay, so you're refusing to answer the question. That does not give this committee any confidence that TikTok is doing anything other than participating in Chinese propaganda and espionage on American children.
That's not accurate. And again, I would point you to
if it were not accurate, you would answer the questions, and you have dodged the questions more than any witness I have seen in my 9 years serving in the Senate.
One shared tactic admitted by each company is a metric used to keep you and your children using TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube for as long as possible.
So we have had almost 3 decades of big tech not having any kind of accountability or regulation.
Lawmakers are now working to stop lucrative practices, especially these that prey on kids and keep them in front of the screen. In the meantime, experts say parents must assume the burden of being the first line of defense.
Parents, it starts with us, and we have to make those changes first, and then we can help our kids begin to make changes if we're out of control in this area.
The Senate subcommittee will review data from research conducted by each company on a range of issues, including mental health implications, the number of deaths from using their products, and how many misinformation videos were posted during COVID. The future of big tech and questions of regulation remain uncertain. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Wow, Brody, thank you. Some really disturbing information in there. Wow. Here with us now for more is Chris Lewis, president of the Public Knowledge Group. Chris, thanks for coming on Faith Nation. You know, I have to ask, after hearing some of these stats, are these hearings actually significant, and where could they possibly lead? Regulation, censorship, so much information in that report.
Absolutely. There's a lot in this hearing, and I think it is a very important first step that the Senate is holding these hearings, because we have to remember that the internet and these platforms that run on the internet, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, which were at this hearing, or others, they are media. But they're a type of media that is still in its early years. And, just like old types of media, there are real concerns about the content on that media. And how do you balance having quality content with the other great benefit of the internet, which is that it allows so many of us to create communities and to speak with each other without any sort of filter. So there's a lot of values we have to balance there, and this hearing was about the protection of kids and their safety and the importance of that value.
Right, so important. You know, most would certainly agree the research on the impact on these young girls, on these children, is super disturbing. But, you know, couldn't we say this about other platforms, magazines, TV, advertising? What in particular makes social media so special that it's getting this kind of attention? Is it just the access children have?
It's a few things. It's certainly the access that children have that makes it a concern. But it's not just the ease of the access. It's the fact that while magazines or television, even when it was new, was a media that could reach you one person at a time. The internet is different. These internet platforms are meant for many-to-many communication, and the speed and the scope with which content is spread, even in real time, makes it far more challenging to monitor and to moderate. There are First Amendment concerns when you start to limit how people can use these platforms to speak freely. And so to find and strike that balance while putting the safety of children first is a challenge.
You know, and while we're trying to, protect our children, the question is, how do you even do it? Is there any danger to freedom of speech when you try to start reeling in what specifically is not allowed and what's okay? What do you think?
Right. I think there's a lot that can be done and should be looked at. We've called at Public Knowledge for a digital regulator that has the expertise that currently only resides in these dominant digital tech platform companies, so that they can do the deep work to look at algorithms and whether or not they are designed as a product in a dangerous way. Certainly there's calls for increased protections around privacy, especially updating the COPPA law, which deals with children's privacy and the data that's collected on kids of a certain age. Right now, the age is 13. There was talk at the hearing about making that age higher. So there's a lot of work we need to do in the regulatory space. And we need to make sure that those regulations hopefully are balanced against the laws that promote strong content moderation already, like Section 230, which empowers platforms to actually do moderation rather than de-incentivizing them to moderate content. Because they could be sued over those choices.
So complicated. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Well, we're certain to have you back because there's a lot to talk about here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with President Biden's domestic agenda stalled in the democratically controlled Congress and the world still reeling from his catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan, he is looking for a win. Our CBN News senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon joining us now with more on his strategy. Jennifer.
Tara, with the midterms quickly approaching and a number of international meetings scheduled for the end of the week, President Biden is desperate to show the nation and the world that he can advance his agenda. All this is happening amid a red-hot governor's race in Virginia, just miles from the White House.
A number of polls show the governor's race in this blue state locked in a dead heat. Democrat Terry McAuliffe has embraced Biden from the start. And even with the president's approval rating among Virginians in the red, the The men continue to cling to each other's horses, hoping for a squeaker 1 week from today. Republican Glenn Youngkin's gains are already seen as a referendum on Biden's presidency and have Democrats on edge as they brace for next year's midterms.
This race is incredibly important. It's always important.
Back in Washington, the president pushing to get a vote on his massive signature spending package.
I'd like to do them this week.
Progressives remain at a standoff with centrists who think the bill attempts too much and insist the $3.5 trillion price tag come down to under $2. And until the spending bill is settled, progressives won't approve the president's long-promised $1 billion infrastructure bill.
This initiative is about betting on America, about believing in America, about believing in the American people.
The measure has already passed the Senate with bipartisan approval. If Democrats reach a deal on spending, the president could sign the infrastructure bill and head off to meet with world leaders in Europe at the end of the week, with at last a feather in his cap.
Let's let the president go overseas with the idea that his party and others are working for the betterment of America.
And today, a long chat with a Democrat at the center of securing much of Biden's agenda.
Anything new lately? Not much.
Despite having just come off a weekend in Delaware with the president, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin appears unchanged.
I've just basically said to the president, I said, Mr. President, my philosophy of politics is this. When I got involved in 1982, I always thought government should be my partner, not my provider.
And Manchin predicts that infrastructure bill will pass by the end of the week. Tara, he also addressed rumors about switching parties. And he says it simply doesn't matter whether there's a D, an R, or an I beside his name. It won't change who he is. He also says he imagines on some issues Republicans would probably be just as frustrated with him as Democrats are, joking he just doesn't know where the heck he fits in. Tara?
Jennifer Wishon, thank you so much. It's got to be a lot of pressure on him.
Absolutely.
Well, we are joined now with David Brody, our CBN News chief political analyst. David, thank you for being on Faith Nation today. You just heard from Senator Manchin, a moderate Democrat, as you well know, and his take on this multi-trillion-dollar spending spree from the Democrats. Is he going to continue to be a roadblock on this, or do you see him caving?
Well, Tara, I like how you said caving. Sure, some people will call it caving, but I think it's all going to get done at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, Manchin even signaling that he thinks something will get done by the end of the week. And look, it's gone from, what, $3.5 trillion to about $2 trillion, probably be a little less than that when all is said and done. But we predicted on Faith Nation, it's time to pat ourselves on the back. Let's do that right now. We've been saying for a long time that indeed I've been saying for a while that they were going to eventually pare this thing down, and they've got to get something passed. Why? Because here's the thing, Tara, this just in Washington. Power is everything. And they know, the Democrats know that if they don't get something done, they'll be out of power in 2022. So that's why AOC and the squad are going to have to take the squad pill and figure it all out and make sure that something gets done. Because right now, something is better than nothing.
I suppose so. Well, David, changing gears a little bit, the neck-and-neck race in Virginia for the governor's mansion, seen by so many as a bellwether for the midterms. A 14-year-old boy, you know this case, who identifies as transgender, just found guilty of sexual assaulting a girl at a Loudoun County high school. Is this going to move the dial on this governor's race where social and school board issues are so front and center? This is the eye of the storm.
It's totally the eye of the storm. And as you know that from covering Loudoun County, I mean, look, this is obviously horrible news to hear as it relates to the sexual assault. And from a political standpoint, horrible news for Terry McAuliffe. Couldn't come at the worst time, right? About a week away from the election. It is a week away from the election. And this now all of a sudden playing prominently in the race. So look, this is a critical race, and critical race theory has been featured prominently in this race. And look, it's clearly a bellwether. Everybody talking about it being a bellwether. Let's be honest, okay? Let's just be straight up about it. This is all about the suburbs. We're going to find out if Democrats are going to turn out. Right now, it doesn't look like they're turning out as much as Republicans in early voting. But this will all be about the suburbs and the exurbs, and this will be the template for Republicans going into the midterms. And quite frankly, 2024 as well, whoever runs for president knows that this Marxist stuff with critical race theory and all the stuff they're trying to peddle in the suburbs, that ain't going to cut it with parents that are trying to raise kids.
Going to be so interesting, David, in the next week when we find out, you know, did Youngkin pull it off, or, you know, what's going to happen. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks,
All
Tara.
right, coming up, what another drug company's results could mean for a COVID vaccine for young kids. Tonight, Pfizer's COVID vaccine doses for kids are under the microscope. U.S. health officials are deliberating whether kid-sized doses are safe and effective, particularly for kids ages 5 to 11 years old.
There have also been close to 100 deaths, making it one of the top 10 causes of death in this age range during this time. In addition, infections have caused many school closures and disrupted the education and socialization of children.
FDA panel members debating the children's vaccine and emphasizing that children are not simply small adults. Review of the Pfizer vaccine comes as Moderna now says its COVID vaccine is protective and safe in kids ages 6 to 11 years old. Here with us now is our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson. Lori, thanks for coming on Faith Nation today.
Thanks for having me.
How soon could children between ages 5 and 11 get those shots?
They could get them as early as the end of next week. After the FDA signs off, the CDC will have to also take a look at the data and see if they approve the measure. And so if they do give it the green light, then as early as the end of next week, kids could start getting their vaccines, most likely in the pediatrician's office, which is really different from what we saw with adult vaccines. 25,000 pediatricians' offices are getting these vaccines, and that will be the main place kids will be getting them. Also, they'll be getting them at school. Kids who are vaccinated next week, Tara, and shortly thereafter, will actually be fully vaccinated by Christmas. This is a 2-dose regimen separated by 3 weeks. And then after that second shot, it'll take another 2 weeks for a child's immune system to mount that full response, for a child to become completely immune. Of course, we know Christmas is a big time for families to get together. Parents are concerned about their children getting around older, perhaps more vulnerable people. So this is something that a lot of parents might want to do. And also, we know that health officials are recommending that all people who are eligible for that booster shot go ahead and get it at least 2 weeks before getting together with other people. We know that sadly, many people who are fully vaccinated can still get COVID-19 and even die from it. We saw that in the news not too long ago with former Secretary of State Colin Powell. He was fully vaccinated and sadly died from COVID-19. He was planning on getting a booster shot, but unfortunately was hospitalized and passed before he was able to do that.
How many kids do you think in this age group, 5 to 11, will actually get vaccinated? You know, we know about all the pushback. Do you think a lot of them will go ahead and their parents will get them vaccinated?
Well, surveys show that 1/3 of parents are definite yeses, another 1/4 are definite no's, and the other parents are sort of in between on the fence. And, you know, this could change. We did see that polls did change regarding adults and their vaccination status as people around them became vaccinated, as mandates were enacted. So once again, parents of children between the ages of 5 and 11 are strongly recommended to urged to talk to their pediatricians about what's right for their child.
All right, Lori, we're just about out of time. So really quickly, yes or no, can you get a COVID shot and a flu shot really close together if you're a kid?
The quick answer is yes. There are no recommendations or no advisories saying not to do it. But again, talk to your doctor. And this is also true with adults, can get their flu shot and their COVID shot in the same day, but do talk to your doctor.
All right, 'tis the season. Lori Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, when we come back, wild weather from coast to coast, why New York is on high alert and why that could be good news for California. Extreme weather is rocking the U.S. from coast to coast. Heavy storms bringing flooding in the west and tornadoes in the Midwest. Meanwhile, a nor'easter is headed up the East Coast. Dale Hurd has the story.
A day after the West Coast saw record storms and then a cluster of tornadoes struck the Midwest, the first nor'easter of the season is taking aim along the East Coast with up to 8 inches of rain and winds up to 60 miles per hour. New York and New Jersey have already declared states of emergency, and flash flood watches are in effect from the New Jersey shore to Boston.
Heavy rain this morning across northern and central New Jersey. This storm really starts to strengthen, and that's when we're going to have even more extreme impacts, especially across eastern New England and around the Boston area.
New York City officials are urging people living in basements to be on alert after 11 people died in flooded basements last month from Hurricane Ida. Today's storm comes after a historic so-called atmospheric river slammed into the West Coast, sending mud, trees, and boulders crashing down on this California highway. This big rig was blown onto its side on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. Elsewhere in California's Bay Area, neighborhoods underwater.
My whole garage is up to my kneecaps. Everything is floating around.
Parts of I-80 had to be shut down because of heavy snow. The coast of Washington state saw its strongest storm on record. The Midwest was also feeling nature's wrath. In Chicago, winds from a separate system created 12-foot waves on Lake Michigan.
Look at this strong tornado.
That storm dropped at least 13 tornadoes in Missouri and Illinois, one of which destroyed John and Joellen Duncan's home northeast of Kansas City.
We have a basement, but there wasn't time. Once you see the tornado, there's not time to run to the basement. If we'd have tried, we'd have probably been killed.
But the good news for Californians is water, large volumes of water, much needed after the summer drought. The Lake Oroville Reservoir in Northern California has risen more than 20 feet. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Scary stuff. When we come back, replacing the International Space Station, how soon could a commercial outpost orbit the Earth? This is intriguing. The next space station may be more like a Starship village in the cosmos. Billionaire Jeff Bezos is announcing plans for the launch of his company Blue Origin's commercial space station, Orbital Reef. The privately funded living, working, and research center would be a low Earth orbit destination after the International Space Station is retired. The Amazon founder says an initial version of the outpost, built in conjunction with Boeing and Sierra Space, will be flying before 2030. Leave it to Jeff Bezos, right? Well, out of sight also, right? As they say. That's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.